Retro anime. How did we find it? How does it hold up? Unpacking the ins and outs of being an old school nerd and proving that 80s kids can't remember a damn thing right. These are the mindless midlife musings of the anime nerd.
Welcome to Mindless Midlife Musings of the Anime Nerd. I'm Rick, and I'm joined by the rest of our panel, Vic, Brian, and Lynette. How's it going, everyone?
What it do?
Awesome. Today we're talking about young love, music, and humans in transforming jets fighting against an army of giant alien clones. You know, typical love story stuff. Today we're talking about Super Dimension Fortress Macross. Super Dimension Fortress Macross is an anime television series from 1982. The show was created by Studio Nue from an original concept by newcomer member Shoji Kawamori. It was released on October 3rd, 1982, and ran through June 26th of 1983. And you can't really talk about Macross without talking about Robotech. Especially here in the West, those two series are intertwined in lockstep.
I noticed that you did not go with synonymous because that would have been like...
No, yeah. Synonymous is definitely a misnomer. They are the bastard cousins. I don't know. So anybody in the West that is a hardcore Macross fan generally has a love-hate relationship with Robotech. For most of us, Robotech is how we first came to the series. I know it's how I came to the series. Vic, Brian, same for you. Robotech is a version of Macross. So what happened was when Studio Nue came up with the idea for Super Dimension Fortress Macross, they needed funding. So they went to Big West, an advertising company who was looking to get into animation and have some stake in it. And they said, all right, we'll fund you. So they funded Macross, but budget constraints. They wanted to pare it down to about 27 episodes, meaning the show would have ended with the battle against Baudelaires' fleet. Big, huge, epic episode. And in the series, it kind of happens pretty much in the middle of the whole damn thing. Even then, Big West found that the show was running a little more expensive than they had bargained for. So to secure more money to be able to make the series, they entered into a partnership with animation studio Tatsunoko. I don't want to get too much into this, a lot of legalese here, but Tatsunoko, in their joining, they got international distribution rights to the series. So then they took that series and they sold it to Harmony Gold. Well, they licensed it to Harmony Gold here in America. All right. So Harmony Gold decided, all right, we want to make this. We're going to translate it. We're going to put it out there. Except when they wanted to do that, no network would syndicate the show unless it had 65 episodes. Now, Super Dimension Fortress Macross is only 36 episodes, so their hands were tied, and Harmony Gold had no choice. They could either not put it on TV, which is the worst idea, or they could just try for a home video market, which would probably have killed it. So instead, they took two other series that were completely unrelated, Super Dimension Cavalry Southern Cross and Genesis Climber Mospita, rewrote the two series to try and make them fit into the Macross storyline to create a larger, overreaching, generational story, and then they called it Robotech. This gave them enough episodes to release the series in the United States, and to say it was a hit would be underselling it. It was a big deal, especially in 1985 when it came out. That's when I first saw it.
You know, my first question to you, sir,
Yeah.
is, as you're saying this, I hear thousands of Macross fans just cheering on your description of what happened. And I hear some profanity being thrown around like, yeah, that's what happened. That.
Yeah, so it's a lot of anime fans, especially those in our age group, grew up with Robotech only to find out that, you know, Macross was a thing and we never got any more of it until we got like a little bit snuck through Macross Plus, Macross 2. But there's been so many subsequent series and none of it came to the States. And that's all because Harmony Gold asserts that it had exclusive rights to the distribution of Macross, like just in general. So it started sending cease and desist letters and legal actions and all this stuff to bar anything with the Macross title from coming to the States or anywhere outside of Japan.
And they held on to that for like dear life. I mean, that's
Right.
literally the only thing that they've been profiting off of.
This made it very difficult to be a fan of this series, this franchise, anywhere but in Japan. And Big West, the advertising company that has the controlling stake in the series, obviously they gave no. They're just like, we're going to keep making it. Oh well. And they did, to a great deal of success. As I meanwhile, Americans and anybody, South America, North America, anybody outside of Japan, we had Robotech, and that's what we had. The good news is that for the most part, Super Dimension Fortress Macross and Robotech are basically the same story. They didn't rewrite too much of it, just little bits that they needed to lay seed work for the remaining two series that they did do more heavy rewrites than are on.
Sorry, 2 questions.
God, please, this, yeah.
First statement is this. So for the purpose of this podcast, we're going to make the statement that we only reviewed the original 36 episodes.
Right. We're talking today about Super Dimension Fortress Macross, not Robotech. But
Not Robotech.
We can't talk about Macross without talking about Robotech, because Robotech was our gateway drug to it. You know what I mean?
Essentially just the first part of the first third of Robotech.
First third of Robotech. So in 1980, it was 1980 something. I remember for me, the first time finding this series, I was in 2nd grade. We were living in Alabama. We were stationed there. And I was down at a park. For some reason, I remember this. And you remember stupid things when you're a kid. I was down at a park, and this kid I was playing with had a big brother, and the big brother had Jetfire, the toy Jetfire from Transformers. And he had it next to another thing that looked kind of like a battleship, but it was big and it transformed. And I'm like, well, what Transformer is that? And he told me, no, that's the SDF-1. And I'm like, well, why you have it with Jetfire? And he was explaining to me, well, that's not Jetfire. That's actually a Veritech. And I'm no idea what the hell he was talking about. So he explained to me that it was from Robotech. So that's when I found out it existed, and that's when I started watching it. So for me, it was through toys.
Sir, I always believe that you lived a charmed life, and I'll even go so far as to say you're a unicorn, because you were able to find Japanese anime in 80s Alabama. let's not pretend that the amount of things that had to happen to even get you to the point where you were talking about a Veritech, not Transformers, which is American gold right there. Somebody, I presume, who still had all their teeth.
Well, yes, we were on a military base, so government dental.
Okay. Alabama. Goddamn.
Yeah, so it was how I found Robotech, and so I watched Robotech, and that was Macross for me until later, when I finally found out what it was through magazine publications, because the internet was not a thing, and then come to find out that so sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. So at the time, and I know this is a lot of history, but the history of Macross is very rich, so it's worth discussing. Harmony Gold decided to actually sell VHS tapes of Macross. They just called it Robotech Perfect Collection. And it was subtitled versions of Macross on VHS. They were so hard to find and ridiculously overpriced that I never ever saw a completed collection in my life. But I did manage to get a couple episodes of it, and that was my first experience ever watching it. It was sometime in the 90s when I started finding those VHS tapes, and I only had like 2 or 3 of them. So it wasn't until the advent of bootlegging that I was able to finally watch the entire series, until ADV and Animego both finally released it on DVD. And that was the mid-2000s, 2005, I think it was. So it took a very long time to be able to watch this series in its original language, in its complete, presentation.
they make the meme that. Do you realize that in 8 years, the '80s would have been 50 years ago?
Oh,
Wish you didn't say that. I hate you for that.
No, I think it's important to understand
Yeah.
how deep our love for vintage anime goes. That we're talking about something that came out in '82,
Yep.
literally 40 years ago.
Yes. As of this, the release of this episode coincides with the 40th anniversary of the original air date of the first episode in Japan. So yeah, 40 freaking years.
Man,
This started.
we didn't have facial hair. There was no pubic hair. Dude, we didn't
No.
even. And I love the statement that you said that, as opposed to the whole journey with Macross, we started in the '90s with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Vic, you started in the '70s. My bad.
If you think about it, it was in the
Macross.
'80s with 2 episodes. That's a level of dedication that you have. I have to stop and pause that. I mean, how many people can say that they have seen 2 VHS worths of video of a series and been so
It didn't
hooked
even
on
start
it?
with that. His
It
love didn't even start with that.
started with the asking a guy what this thing was and getting it
Yeah.
explained, and then watching it, and then getting 2 VHS, and then going,
Yeah.
you know what? I am so dedicated to this thing that I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know how many
Yeah.
people can. I mean, I have
Yeah.
forgotten anime after watching 2 VHS things because I'm like, I can't
Right.
get it anymore, so I'm done.
And it's, I mean, so for me, I appreciate that, but it's like for me, it was Robotech was enough, right? There's a time in the 80s, in maybe the early 90s, where Robotech was fine. I just wanted more of it. So if it was going to be more Macross as versioned by Robotech by Harmony Gold, I was fine with that. I just wanted more Macross. I didn't care what name they put on it. I just wanted to see more of it. So
Then you realize you've been lied to.
yeah, and then I realized what we were dealing with, and then I started to really resent Harmony Gold's grip on it, and Tatsunoko for licensing it to them in the first place on such shoddy ass contract language. Anyway, so
I mentioned
Robotech,
when more Robotech actually did come out, it was horrible.
it was, yes, because the Harmony Gold creative team, for better or worse, were incapable of capturing the magic that was captured in the original 3 series, the original 2 series, the one in the middle, So,
Yes.
Quick question.
Except for the vocal
Yeah.
3%.
I have a nerdy
sorry,
question.
what's up?
Do the Macross people battle the Robotech people like the second gen versus the original Star Trek?
Nope, never
You guys
happens.
don't battle each other like that?
Never
No?
happens.
Okay.
So in
Kinda cool.
because that would require an animation. That would require so they weren't doing
They
that. They were
pity
just
him. The
recycling.
Macross people pity the Robotech people, and they wait to
Ah.
convert them and say, "You're watching. Let me give you the real cocaine."
It's kind of
You-
like that, yeah.
So that you guys convert them to
So-
Macross.
Yes.
With the thing with Super Dimension Fortress Macross is that it's the best of the 3. The 3 series that Harmony Gold bought and converted to Robotech, Macross was the best, and they knew it. Harmony Gold knew what they were doing. They wanted to get Macross out there. They had no choice but to pack on more stuff to get Macross out there.
So which are the three? Which are the 3 stories?
So there's Macross, Super Dimension Fortress Macross, and then the second generation is Super Dimension Cavalry Southern Cross,
Which we don't discuss.
right? And then the third, it's Bruno. We don't talk about it. And then the third one is Genesis Climber Mospita. And those 2 other series are nowhere near as good. And Harmony Gold knows this because everything they make, everything they market is Macross. You don't see a whole lot of hover tank toys out there for a reason.
So I think it's important to talk about the other aspect of the anime nerd, and that's role playing games.
Sure. Absolutely.
So Palladium
Yes.
was the ones that were responsible for Robotech.
Yes. Palladium
Not only
was
Robotech, they were
heroin.
also responsible for Ninja Turtles, which is how me and Vic met each other.
Yes. Yeah. Role playing Ninja
We started
Turtles.
role playing Ninja Turtles
Yep.
over in Campbell Drive Elementary.
Middle.
Middle. So yeah.
What was the name of our
Palladium.
damn mascot?
It was the Wildcats.
The Wildcats. I'll go say the Warriors, but sure, Wildcats sounds better.
That was definitely it. Yeah, you're right. Palladium did a series of role-playing game books for Robotech, and then they also got the license to Macross 2, separate from Harmony Gold's license. So they
Right.
released books for Macross 2 that were the same role-playing game system as Robotech. So you could literally put those together and just keep playing Macross. It was very clever.
That is actually how I fell in love with Robotech, was because of the Palladium games. And
Sure.
I learned, I don't know if y'all remember this story, but we were role playing that one time, and I kept on dying because I kept on getting ones
The dice were not in your favor that day.
at all. But I remember that we were role playing, and we had actually gotten into Macross 2.
Mm-hmm.
We were in there, but then we also were doing a little bit of the Invid Wars.
Sure,
Right?
absolutely. Because who doesn't
Because-
love the Cyclone bikes, man? Those things were
The
fantastic.
Cyclone.
Yeah.
Everything over that we're talking about right now has nothing to do with Macross.
Nothing. Not at all. But it is
That's the gateway.
that's how much we were into it. Was that we were role playing it because there was nothing else to watch. We were just like, we're gonna make our own sequels here. And that's kind of how we ended up doing it.
To be young and have an imagination.
I feel so good about making that statement because in my mind, I always visioned how good Max was,
Yeah.
right? Because I never really got a chance to see it.
All right.
Max
So-
is a beast.
Max is Max is the dude has a rep for a reason. So let's dig a little deeper now. We've talked about the history. Let's get into this. So Super Dimension Fortress Macross starts in 1999 when an alien spaceship crashes into an island, South Ataria Island in the South Pacific. And suddenly, humankind discovers we are not alone in the universe, and they've got really big guns. World War III or IV or however many world wars they decided, basically unification wars start, and they end as the ship is being built and completed. A united Earth government is formed, and the UN decides to restore this ship because they know if something that big crashed, more's gonna come.
There's got to be more.
Right. And then it jumps forward to 2009, 10 years later, when the unveiling of the Super Dimension Fortress Macross, or the SDF-1, is its big unveiling. So the first episode is that.
Yeah. I was I also have a confession. Our first episode,
Mhm.
I will give you the story about the guy who was singing Mospieta.
Yes, that guy. I remember him.
In our second episode,
Right.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
He was singing Macross.
Oh, well, I mean,
Yo,
yeah.
I sat down and I was listening, and I was saying parts of it before it got to it. Like when he was saying Macross,
Yep.
Macross. I was like,
Puros.
Yeah. No, there's that, and the dude whose name I can't pronounce, nor will I try. He sings the hell out of that song, and
he goes in.
He sings it like if his life depended on it.
it's I love that song for just because it's so everything about we've talked about it in the past how everything happens in Japan. It's almost a decade after it happens in America, and for Macross, I feel like that's very true. This is 1982, but everything in it is so 70s. The
Tom
hairstyles,
Jones.
the uniforms are very like the bell bottoms, and and the music is so exactly Makuru ga sonna wo, and you're just like, oh, like we are hard into this.
Yeah, I felt like it was Tom Jones going to town.
Yes, right. And
Dude probably had a fro and everything while he was singing.
man, I loved it. So the first time I saw it, I didn't. The first time I saw it in Japanese, I was like, what the is this? Where's the epic instrumental score opening from Robotech? You know, the Ulpio Minucci, like just bombastic. And it took a few watchings for me to go, you know what? No, this song is banger. F anybody who says otherwise. So,
I have to say it sounds amazing on my Bose. Like when I play it on my Bose.
It's like I have it on a 7-inch vinyl. Come on.
yeah. So subsequent viewings made me like the song more and more. And actually, the whole soundtrack, to speak of it, is everything about it is very 70s-ish, like late 70s-ish in its vibe, and it's great. It's really great. But music is such an important part of this story that I don't want to undercut it and not talk about it. So we'll come back to the music on this, but I do want to get through a couple episodes here, and it's we came up with a master list of episodes that we felt like we should watch for those of us who hadn't seen the entire series. And 1, 2, and 3 we're key watching because 1, 2, and 3 are the setup. And 1, 2, and 3 sells it. And if you've watched those, then you're ready. Like if it hasn't sold you by episode 3, I don't know what to tell you. You just shouldn't be watching the series. So episode 1 is the grand reveal, the inauguration of the SDF-1 and its launch, and of course it takes that long for the Zentradi alien forces to find where the ship crashed. And they show up and they're like, "Where's the ship?" And they look and they're like, "Oh, there's the ship. It looks a little weird. What the is going on?" And all of a sudden, the ship's alert systems kick on, and the ship opens fire without anybody giving any reason. The ship's just like, "Nope, you," and just tears a hole through the island and just obliterates the aliens. And it sets the stage. We shot first.
Not only that, I have to admit that this is the first anime where they have no problems letting you know that people have been cremated.
Yeah.
People have been just flat out incinerated.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
If you lived in the front of the bow of this ship, you were done. You didn't get past episode 1. Yeah, so it eradicates the ship, and the Zentradi forces are just left aghast, like, well, so they unleash hell.
Need more help.
Yeah, they unleash hell as only the Zentradi can, and we are at war. Good job, UN. We shot first.
You figure no one would have programmed a failsafe to emergency shut off power to that?
Right.
It's charging. Quit. Shut it off. Okay, done.
Do you think that that is a indictment on I don't know, times of the 80s?
So I think that everything about this series is a criticism of many other things, and I do think that us shooting first is a just a comment on the human condition. Of course we shot first. Aliens in the sky, kill them. Like, it's just, we didn't have a choice in the matter. The ship is a Supervision Army ship, which is a whole other thing, but it shot first. We didn't have a choice. And of course, humans, being the idiots that we are, we restored this ship, but we didn't fully understand it. But we were going to launch it anyway. We had this ship, we had no idea that this system even existed, but we were just going to launch it into space today.
Like,
what the hell?
It's been here for 10 years. You know, we fought a war over it. It's good enough. Let's go.
Like how did that order, like that file subsection folder, when they input all the computers so humans can be able to operate this, they didn't see that whole protocol for alien design.
Somebody missed that code. Somebody missed that code, you know.
That line of code.
Someone's online translator was actually quite off that day.
Yeah, the binary that said kaboom.
Protection. That's all it said. Protection. And everybody's like, we can always use protection.
Right.
That's cool. That's all it said was protection. protection.
This series, it now remember, this is 1985 when I started watching this. This series had a lot of firsts for animation. This is a television syndication. In the mornings before school, we'd catch this. And it had a lot of firsts. It had a lot of things that you weren't used to seeing on television, especially as a kid in elementary school. It had women in charge, right? Misa is running. Gunsight 1, who do you go to? You go to Misa and you go to Claudia. You get shit done. The entire bridge populated with high-ranking female officials, and a captain who shows up when he shows up. God love him.
In a cigar.
And they're just right. That's right. A pipe. No smoking on the bridge. Damn it. So it was kind of cool to see these characters, see these, and to reflect on it now as an adult and go, wow, it's very interesting because like other shows that were militaristic, G.I. Joe, things like that, the female characters were secondary. The female characters were a part of the series, but they weren't like in charge. It was like Duke.
Token.
Token. And they're always white women. It was a token white woman.
And it's funny, 'cause that's another show that, everyone shot at each other with lasers, yet no one died.
Right.
Oh, not in this one.
And that's,
no.
Let's dig into this. There's another thing that this series does that no other series did in the 80s. And it was,
at least not for us out here.
It brought mortality to the forefront. And it wasn't animated mortality. It wasn't a comic book hero dying and then coming back the next episode. It wasn't Superman beaten to death by Doomsday and then two comic books later there's 5 of them. When somebody died, they were dead. And it wasn't a little dead. They were really dead. They were all dead. So
like,
slightly dead, not just a little dead, but they were dead.
Stay dead.
Yeah, it's especially, and I mean, it takes a lot of episodes to get there, but episode 18, Pineapple Salad,
you motherfuckers.
It's gut wrenching, right? All right, so I know we were going to try and go in order, and I'm sorry, Brian, but we had to jump to this. It's important to talk about because of the history of the series. A main character gets killed 18 episodes in. And you're very invested in this character. You've been with him for 18 episomes.
Hold on.
Trying to figure out why they named him Fokker. That was one of the things that I was like, why are you naming this cool guy Fokker? And then Pineapple Salad, I'm going, is this a kink thing? I hope this is not a kink thing because this is going to be very weird if it's a kink thing on episode 18.
And
it's actually a pineapple with salad.
It's
the best thing he tossed a pineapple salad.
thus
so
jinxing pineapple.
I have one thing that kind of made me mad.
Sure.
Was going through his dumb head when he decided I got shot up in the back. I'm gonna go home and play the guitar.
Right. So
that is something that has been argued online for decades.
So I'll tell you my headcanon on this. So episode 18, Commander Fokker and the rest of Vermilion Squadron are out fighting a battle against the worst enemy you could possibly fight, and that's the female Zentradi, the Meltrandi warriors. They're the bad. Don't f with them. And Max, God bless him, is doing what he does and just up because he's awesome. And Fokker, not to be taken lightly, fantastic pilot, gets shot.
Even when drunk,
yes. He gets shot up and lands. Now, my headcanon is he knew he was dying, and he decided he would rather spend his last moments with the woman he loves than be stuck in a hospital bed, people cutting him up trying to save him. That's my headcanon. And so he decided at that point I could go to the medics who are going to triage my ass and I'm dead, or I can go be with the woman I love. And he chose that. It's horrible. It's tragic. It me up in 2nd grade watching a main character die and never come back. It wasn't like, oh man, he's messed up. He's going to be okay. And the end of the episodes is like, I'm sorry, he's dead. It's what?
Yeah, I actually missed the bus because I did not want to leave before finishing the episode.
Yeah.
So I got in trouble and grounded because I missed the bus watching this episode because I was so invested in it and I was like just so shook.
So my problem with that scene is this. We've already been established that the Zentradi are 50, 60 feet tall,
Yep.
right? So they have their armaments scheduled for that tall.
That scale, right? So
That
a bullet is like a 50 cal.
Where they getting these pinpoint lasers from? I hit the man 3 times, and he did it just immediately incinerate. Where?
Yeah, you're not wrong. All I can say is 80s anime physics. I don't know, man.
Okay, all right. Look,
Anime logic.
I think have we made that a thing for us? Anime physics.
I feel like it has to be. If anything, this series has a lot of that in it.
Oh, which brought me back to
It's
number 1.
space,
Let's do it.
distance, and then the bullet gets smaller. The further parts
That's
are
right.
away,
It
no matter
shrinks
how tall they are,
because of the
they get smaller the further it goes.
It's kind
atmospheric
of like
friction.
kind of like a little meteor crashing through the atmosphere. It gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bullet.
That's it. Let's go with
That's
it.
Zentradi bullet physics. It will, by the time it hits a human, it is a regular human size. It's a human bullet.
And if you're far enough away, the bullet just completely disintegrates before it even hits you.
It tickles you.
It's
Like
tickles you.
it's like shooting in water, right?
That's right.
Gucci, Gucci, goo. Gucci, Gucci, goo.
So what you're saying is that if Roy were like a few hundred feet further out,
He'd have been fine.
bounced right off the tip.
It would have been like BB gun, you know?
Oh, instead of pew, 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 it's Gucci, Gucci, goo. Fair enough.
right.
All right.
So what was your problem, Brian, with the anime physics in the early episodes?
So this is, for me, I feel like this is where Fast and Furious got their penchant for just bull saying, right?
All right.
So episode 1,
Yeah.
no, this is probably episode 2 actually, where he meets Min May for the first time.
He meets Minmay in episode 1, sort of, but and episode 1 ends with him in a flat nose dive, completely. And Misa's like, "Have you tried configuration B?" And he's like, "I don't know what the you're talking about, lady. You at me till I took off. I don't even know what this thing does." And then she's like, "Oh." So hit the B on your console, and then he transforms into a 50-foot robot and crash lands in the city, leveling 6 buildings. I don't know.
Yeah.
Killing God knows how many.
And then
And
technically,
then he gets up and dusts himself off.
yeah, it's like. So beginning of episode 2 is when he like has more dialogue with Minmay. I guess it's more like their actual together like intro stuff.
So he has to save her and drive with her in a metal fist.
Yes, right. Because he honestly, because Hikaru, God love him, is an idiot. He picks this girl up in his metal fists, and he's
In a metal
flying.
fist.
And he's flying at, I don't know what, Mach 1. A couple hundred miles an hour.
With her face, not for this hair going back, not knowing how many damn bugs or debris or anything that just hit her in the face this entire time.
He stops and she's like caked with dead mosquitoes.
Well, what's happening is eventually they take off. So now he's flying in the air.
Like take hundreds of feet in the air, easily. Thousands,
with the girl
thousand feet.
Still in the metal fist.
Doesn't need to breathe.
You know that
only for the hand to get blown off and her to start falling towards the earth.
Yes. And then he realizes, I could have put her in the cockpit the whole time.
He actually said it before they took off.
Yes.
Put her in the cockpit.
Yeah.
And then it's the zoop flying down to open the cockpit to grab her to put her back in the back seat. Him almost lift out. That right there is where the Fast and Furious gets all of its ridiculous saves from.
What about shoving the what is it, napkin or whatever, the towel into the window because it's
Yep.
leaking air. We're in
Stops
the
it.
middle of space. It's
Stops
okay.
it fine.
Let's just put a
Just
little
shove my
scarf in there.
scarf.
You know,
No
it'll be
problem.
fine.
Just plug the hole real quick.
Fine. Yeah.
We're just like, we're good. Yeah, I mean, anime physics, right? That's all you can do. And rule of cool, right? You gotta admit, it looked cool as when he's diving to get her and the cockpit's opening and he's reaching out. Very dramatic. But yeah,
It didn't just
she.
snap off.
So yeah, it's what are you gonna do? Episode 2 and 3. Episode 3, Spacefold. Oh man, Spacefold. I have issues with Spacefold. Actually, let me back up. I have issues with Captain Global in general. He's pretty bad at his job.
I love how those people in that first, we have not, before we rag on Captain Global, let's talk about the worst mustache ever known to man.
Oh, you mean the mayor
The
with his little
wannabe Fu Manchu?
yes, the mayor with his little tiny nibs on the ends of his lips.
All right, so here's what happened. The bad idea comes in from little mustache man.
Yeah,
and
the mayor.
Captain Global.
You should take off. It's like, he's like, no, get out of here.
But then they always do this thing where they are able to analyze why the bad idea is bad, and then they still go ahead and do it.
Well, I mean, of course.
Like, so he says, mustache guy on the way out, he says, you just leave the negotiations to the politicians. And then Global, as he walks out, he says, they don't expect us to do anything. What? And he said, well, we're going to go. Okay. The word I'm looking for is lawful order. That's not it.
To say that, I mean, to the credit of these Japanese writers, they tried their damnedest, but military strategy is not the highest thing on their list of knowledge base. Oh. So they did the best they could with what they had as far as military strategy goes. And honestly, as a kid, I was with Global the whole time, you know? It's only as an adult that I reanalyzed it and go, man, dude, you killed a lot of people. Like, seriously.
The Spacefold thing. I was like, did you just take an island and put it in the middle of space?
Not even just
Pluto.
I mean, try and imagine that.
If you were someone that was driving and half your family was outside of the fold and the rest of your family was inside the fold.
Yes.
Or just, I mean, you're fucking dead anyway, right? But the
and
people,
they're in their little safety things, and all of a sudden they're covered in ice. They're not alive anymore. He just killed an island. That's
he absolutely, and the local flora and the local fauna, they're dead. Like just everything, eradicating life.
Didn't he do like the equivalence of like, oh, oops, after it happened? like
My bad.
Happened,
My bad.
And, like everybody sees the island, and he was just
again.
Like,
that's on me. That was on me. My bad, y'all.
Yeah,
it's like he flips the fold switch. He's like, "Go inside."
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, it's on it. And again, this rolls back into nobody fully tested this thing before they decided we're just gonna have a launch ceremony. Let's just do it.
Across the universe.
That it folds everything in this huge circumference.
Yeah. Yo, the thing that tripped me out about it is at the end of do y'all know the last thing that is said on that episode?
No.
The last thing that said is Captain Global's on the phone. Yeah, okay. He hangs up and he goes, so the spacefold drive has disappeared.
So that's I wanted to comment. One of the things about the series that I love is how they are the entire thing.
Yeah.
The entire thing, they are punching above their class, and they cannot catch a break. They're gonna have a launch ceremony. The ship fires for them. They have no control over it. They want to try and escape the spacefold to take a whole island with them, and then the spacefold system disappears. And then they're like, all right, fine. Well, we got to fire the main gun again because they're attacking again. Oh, yeah, no. When the space fold, like, took off, the connection between the gun, that's gone. We don't have that anymore. And it's like, now what? Like, well, if we transform the ship, like, the ship can transform? And they're like, well, yeah, we can totally. So then the ship, then they can fire. Oh, but when we did that, we killed, like, a ton of people because we crushed the city and the ship. Well, like, it just could not catch a goddamn break.
Like, they are literally...
And the whole time, like, Mid-May and here, and everybody, they're in this little ship thing. He's like, where are we? I don't know where we're at. We're just going to be lost. I don't know.
They could not catch a break. This whole series is characters just being over by life and having no control over it.
Hey, talk about the ultimate bad day.
I'm going to call this MacGuffin Tech.
No, this is Murphy's Law on steroids. That's what this is.
Yeah, this is the Murphy's Law series. And honestly, this sets up a whole lot of, I want to say tropes, but a whole lot of, similarities, talking points. They call it tropes. They call up a bunch of tropes. This causes a lot of tropes that are carried into anime forever, ever since. Like, Macross was the first time to do a lot of this stuff. And it was a... even in its own franchise, a lot of these things come back over and over and over again. One of them being, the pineapple salad thing. Can't do pineapple. Pineapple as a fruit in general means a character's about to die. It's just kind of like a long-running thing. It's always breaking and not working. I kind of appreciate it, though, because in, say, in G.I. Joe, if Duke got a new laser gun, that laser gun just worked.
Always.
If Duke got a laser gun and he was in the Macross universe, that laser gun would have teleported him to the bottom of the ocean with a one air tank and a single flipper. And he would just been like, well, I guess I'll figure this out.
The laser gun would have just kept on going and disappeared.
And the laser gun would have disappeared. He wouldn't even had a gun at that point.
Or it shot once, burned him in the face, and then ran away.
Right, yeah. It's just everything that could go wrong would go wrong in this series. And I appreciated that because it was just, I don't know, for me, it was a sense of, like, God, these guys have all the money and the technology of the world, and it just keeps failing for them. And you know what? They keep going because that's, if anything, that's what this story is really about, is about humans persevering against just immeasurable odds. Not just the aliens, but fate itself was trying to kill these people this entire series, and it just couldn't keep us down.
But the whole thing is, what if we gave a whole cast of Lando Calrissians, a whole cast of Lando Calrissians, and we're gonna make a whole show full of them. Put them in the earth.
I think the best summary, watching all these episodes together, I would have to say Global Report was the best way to summarize what had happened in their life, what they're doing now, and what they plan to do in the future. It was just like, we got punched in the face yesterday. Today we're getting punched in the nuts. And then tomorrow we might get shot in the foot.
It's like we're going to get shot in the foot while walking down the stairs.
That's what I thought. When I watched Global Report, I was like, this is the captain just sitting here. I mean, he hits his head on the ceiling of the doorway.
Every time. I love that. That's little bits like that. This ship is built for 50-foot aliens, but they couldn't make a door 6.5 feet high because Global kept hitting his head on it every time.
Every single thing.
I mean, but yeah, like Global Report, I found that was the funniest episode. I was just watching it. I didn't want to laugh because it was very sad. Like, there were certain parts that it was talking about.
Right.
When I realized the summary, it was just this guy sitting down and going, yeah, I got punched in the face yesterday. and then today a little girl just came and kicked me in the nuts. And then tomorrow I'm gonna go get shot in the foot. I mean, it was a 30-minute fit.
Colonoscopy by a Centron.
Right?
Yeah, it was a 30-minute bitch fit. But it warranted and needed. So an interesting thing to note about this series is the rate at which it was done. So when it debuted on October 3rd in 1982, they had 3 episodes done and ready to go. That's it. So they were animating so fast that they had to get these episodes finished like a week or 2 before they aired. That's all you had. So there was no room for error.
I knew I felt like I saw somebody had erased the line and redrew it.
There's
I knew
all
I felt
kinds
that
of
way.
crazy shit. It would not have surprised me. So they shipped out and sent a lot of this work to other animation studios, like Gainax, AIC, Anime Fiend or Anime Friend, Anime Fiend. That's a pun on purpose. Lots of other studios had to do a lot of the work, so that's why a lot of the animation in this is inconsistent,
That's the
and
word
that's
I
why
was
they
looking.
had. There are episodes that look like absolute. All right, there's
That's
the
why
knife
there are
fight.
sometimes when Hayase looks like she's stoned, like most
Yeah,
of the time,
there's
because eyes are all blurry, and then the next episode her eyes are fine, but then
there are
you know.
episodes that are terribly done. The knife fight
Yo,
between Max and Miria is horrible, but it's such an important like moment in their relationship, and it's horribly animated. And there's nothing. It's just they had no time. I watched. Sorry, Brian. I mean, cut. I
no,
watched an interview with Marie Jima, who voiced Lin Minmay in both the Japanese original and the English version, and she was talking about how they would record an episode, and then the next like week they would see that episode on the air. That's how fast turnaround was for this series. So there are, I think, 2 or 3 clip shows in this series where they just like, we're just gonna take a shit ton of the old animation, put it back in with some new narration. That's an episode. They had to, because they had to buy time to stick to the release schedule. They had no choice. So it was.
And surprisingly, that's something that's actually still in play today.
Is it?
The series, yes. Every once in a while, an episode's not done in time. It skips a week. Sometimes it skips 3. Sometimes it skips a season and a half.
It's kind of wild, the animation industry. But it's certainly Macross is definitely at the forefront of that with a lot of the problems they had. They even lost an episode once, an entire episode. The whole reel got left on a train. Everybody like lost their. So they had to like take a day, and everybody that worked for the studio had to go find it. And they like scoured the trains across Tokyo to try and find it. And they did end up finally finding it, saving them because they didn't have time to reanimate it. They were. So
that person got fired.
dude, can you just like imagine, right? Like I like to think that I do well under pressure, but I do not know if I could work under those sort of circumstances. Like, listen, this is coming out
you guys
next
know
week.
that all that work that you've been doing for the past few weeks, it is gone.
Yeah.
Oh, and we've only got a couple of days to find it.
Hey,
So-
we actually saw how people react. We actually saw that in the first episode of Golden Boy.
Yeah, it's without a doubt.
Yeah. First episode, matter of fact, episode 6. You can see it there
There
too.
you go. One of the things that this series does, in my opinion, extremely well, which is why I kept coming back to it and I keep watching it over and over again, is character development. A lot of these characters have arcs that are complex and mature. I mean, whenever I have to describe this series to somebody, I generally start looking, depending on the person, I either start with, it's giant robots fighting giant aliens. Or I say, it's a coming-of-age love story set against the backdrop of interstellar war. And that's really what this series always is, every single version of this franchise. It's a love story masked in blood. Like, it's got this core love triangle with this just massive amounts of violence in it. And
good music.
And that's part of its formula. And the third part of that formula, the third part of this triangle, is their music. The music in Macross is essential to it because it is how we win.
It's essentially its own character.
And it is how we win every time, right? Music is the defining factor in battle in this series every time. And in the first series, it works best, in my opinion. The first series, Super Dimension Fortress Macross, it's played as a culture shock. You know, these aliens are giant clones. They know nothing but war. They're soldiers, right? It's like they have no idea what culture is. They have no idea how intercourse works. They have no idea of anything. And they're
they don't know feelings.
They're exposed to this, and it shakes them to their core. Some of them are terrified of it.
I have a note about that.
Go ahead.
So I was going to save this for my final thoughts about this.
Yeah.
But this whole thing is basically protoculture equals cooties.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Early on.
This whole war boils down to men are from Mars and women are from Venus. This whole thing. Like their whole culture.
Brian, I now want a T-shirt that says, "Protoculture is cooties."
I said it made me wonder if this is where Vandred came from. Like it's a very new place where it was like men lived on one planet, women lived on another, and they just never met. And they battled each other.
So obviously, like I said before, this series inspired a lot of things. It inspired sequels. What's funny is Macross was inspired by Gundam. They were like, "Oh, Gundam was a huge success. We want to make a Gundam-like series." So then they started doing one. And then subsequent Gundams seem to have been inspired by Macross, as well as just massive amounts of other anime. Hollywood movies call on Macross for things now. Every time you see a missile trail in an action movie, you can thank Macross for it, because nobody did that until Macross started doing the massive missile massacres, where you just like 1,000, cans of Budweiser with missile trails. Like that's
all up. Cans of Coke.
That's it. They threw a Mentos in that and it just went. So that's that is how a lot of these things are inspired by this series. So to say that it had an indelible effect on animation and pop culture throughout the last 40 years is to undersell it. It really had a huge effect on things, even if you didn't know it. And a lot of us in the West had no idea. Lynette, I don't think you'd ever seen this before we started making you.
No, I mean, you said this was like 82. I was a year old. It came out.
Right.
Welcome to the party.
So,
it's like it's 40 years old. I was like, wow, I'm 1 year older than this thing. That's it.
To me, this series is like, all right. So, to put it in Western terms for people, Star Wars is huge, right? It had a huge effect on everybody, but Star Wars isn't original. No offense to George Lucas and Star Wars denier, haters can come on me, but Star Wars is based on a lot of other things, right? It's based on old samurai movies, it's based on Kurosawa films, it's based on John Carter stories from Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's based on a lot of these things, and those older stories, the Edgar Rice Burroughs tales, like John Carter of Mars, those are the OG, and so much stuff is based on that material that doesn't give it credit. It's just it inspired so much stuff that by the time you finally got a John Carter story, the bombed harder than Hiroshima. Like the movie flat out failed. And it's the granddaddy of science fiction. Macross is like that to me. It is the granddaddy of this genre, this love triangle, this mecha genre, science fiction and anime. And a lot of people don't even know it exists. And if they do, they're like, oh my God, it's from the 80s. And they don't give it its due. But this series has affected everything you love without you even knowing it. If you ever loved an action anime or a science fiction anime or a giant robot anime or a love story anime or any of those kinds of things, I guarantee you somebody that worked on that was a Macross fan. It just guarantee it.
Or who knows? Maybe they even worked on it.
Right, for sure. So again, and I think that's from the character depth. These characters grow and evolve. Hikaru is an idiot at the beginning of the series. And by the end, yeah, he's an idiot, but he's an idiot that has grown up as an adult. He's made choices. He's found love, made a decision, finally. Motherfucker.
That's what I put too. Like in one of the episodes, one of the ending ones, I was like, "Oh, he's grown so much." And that was the only thing. That was the only thing that I could put for the episode, and it was like 27. Yeah.
Right. 20. Yeah. Episode 27 was initially intended to be the end. That was the big battle against the Bulldozer fleet, and Hikaru was awesome in that. Like that's when I finally liked him. I liked everybody else in this series except him. I'm like, this kid. And then finally, like by that point, I'm like, you know what? He's got it. He's gonna be all right.
It had like the monster robot in that episode, right? Where it was like the city's like this big, and the monsters like the robot's like this big. And he's about to fight. I think isn't that the one? I couldn't remember. I had to pause one of them and go.
The one thing
Know
that
if those ratios are right.
the one thing that this anime does is it lets you understand how puny you are. Humans are tiny to the Zentrons. Zentrons are 50 feet. Zentradi ships are like a couple miles long because they house all these characters. And then their master ship, the Bulldozer Master Fleet thing, that some is like the size of a small moon. It's ridiculous. It's a Death Star.
It's no moon.
and yeah, it's so big that a ship with a small city in it can fly into it because it's
And
just
it's
that
still
big.
an insignificant size.
Right,
Yes.
insignificant size. So yes, you're right.
Two things I gotta make points about.
Yeah, come on.
First thing is this Vic. We actually have one where I think this was the first time we actually see use of orbital beam cannons. When they first target the Earth,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is orbital beam cannon. This is where they got it from.
This is
But
it.
then they turned the Earth
And
into a reverse orbital beam cannon. I was like, come on.
It was a terrestrial beam cannon.
yes, the Grand Cannon. Yes, it was. Just another case of them, just humans, just figuring out ways to it up despite getting their ass kicked.
And the second thing was we talked about music and how it's so integral into this.
Yeah.
I promise you, if the main character was based off of Brian James, this guy right here, there is no way I will be singing on the bridge as we are doing ramming speed.
I'm sorry. I'm just
With
trying
my
to picture
arms
Brian in a
open.
dress with blue hair.
Yeah. There's no way. As
He's
we're
so
singing
scared.
Valhalla's,
Like,
yeah. I'm not going to be singing Valhalla's Embrace.
She was
Just do this
singing
shit.
like she had all the time in the world, dancing around.
Yeah. She went and got put on a. You know what? I'm going to wear my special dress. I bet you she went and shaved her legs. You know what I'm saying? She said, "I'm going to do this."
You're not wrong, right? But I think that's the point, right? The point was to be as shocking as possible, so the Zentradi are absolutely aghast. So you get an adorable girl to come out and sing love songs, looking beautiful, like no military attire, no nothing. And they're just, of course, they're gonna be like, "What the? These guys are crazy. These humans are insane."
It's like they sing, they dance, you just stand out in the open while they're shooting at them. Who does
What
that?
the hell? What kind of armor is this? What the? These guys are nuts. And then, of course, we kicked. We didn't kick their ass, but we survived because that's what we do.
We didn't lose.
We beat them up and limped away.
I'm telling you now, I am not going to be doing that.
All right. Well, then we hopefully we find a singer with a little more balls than you.
I dare say there is nobody on this earth.
I have no idea. She had to have been on some really good drugs.
Right?
Maybe Vikings back in the day. Maybe you can find yourself a Viking. Lo behold, I see my fall.
Give them
maybe a Viking. Some little Valkyrie. Yeah.
So this series, what's interesting about this is the music, right? So the music in Macross, Super Dimension Fortress Macross, is absolutely 100% different than the music in Robotech.
Oh, for sure.
The music in Robotech was all new music. They took the voice actress, Miss Forstad, I'm mispronouncing it, and they tried to teach her to sing, and they wrote songs for her. This was a very bad idea. With Macross, they took a young girl who was a singer, and they taught her to voice act, which was the right way to go here. Because her music is excellent in Super Dimension Fortress Macross. It's indicative of its time. Absolutely. It's early 80s stuff, 100%, no question about it. But it's good early 80s stuff. Like the music it's catchy, it's fun, it's cute. Some of it's a little absurd.
You got a problem with Zero G Love?
I have a note about that as well.
Go ahead.
So I was looking, so I have to watch it with the subtitles on, right?
Of course. Well, of course.
One of the songs is called Shanghai Dandy. I actually thought it was saying Shanghai Daddy. I was like, I was like, that's the name of the song from now on. I don't give a what you say. It is Shanghai Daddy.
I'm fine with it. Yeah, this series was so tremendously successful that they did a movie version. Super Dimension Fortress Macross. Do you remember love? Where they upped the ante on everything. Right, production value went through the roof. You want a budget? Here's your budget. Like they did it all. And the music in that has the title song, Do You Remember Love? To this day, still one of my favorite songs on the planet.
Was my top choice in our music episode.
I listen to the music from this series all the time. No shame in it. I don't care.
I just remembered another note I put.
What?
And so Lemon Made, we're watching episode 27. And
Sure.
this is the big climax, right?
Yep.
So what's happened is that Hikaru
Yep.
went to Lemon May, said, I don't know if I ever get a chance to tell you this, but I love you.
Right.
Right? Gives her a great salute.
Past tense. Loved. Yeah.
I love.
Loved.
Oh, I loved you.
Loved you. Yeah. Because he's like, I'm dead. He just knows, like, this is it. I'm probably gonna die. I loved you.
Right. So he goes, she comes after him.
Yeah.
Right? And
Leaving the fiance.
huh?
For a boyfriend thing. The guy.
Yeah,
in the
leaving the
background.
fiance.
Her cousin.
Is that her
Kaifun.
cousin?
Her Kaifun's her cousin. Yeah, and him. Kaifun sucks.
They kiss?
So
I ain't saying. I'm just telling you, he's your cousin.
It was a
Kaifun.
different time. It was a different
I
era.
feel better assuming that they were like fiance. Now I feel
Kaifun
like weird.
is her cousin. By marriage, maybe? I don't know, but he's her cousin. So yes, Kaifun is her cousin, which makes it all the more cringeworthy. And you know what? I'll give them credit. In Robotech, they didn't even change that. They left him as her cousin. So good for them.
he leaves her. Well, she leaves now and goes after him.
Yeah.
Just for them to be there in time for the Zentradi to do their orbital bombardment, right?
Yep. Right.
World gets demolished. And I was like, oh, the first thing she does, she starts singing. I was like, the world just got blown up, and here comes a mid-made mixtape. I was like, what? Now's the time for her to start singing.
This series, I don't want to make it sound like this, but I have to say it anyway. It has a very militarism sort of vibe on it and theme, right? Because everybody, it's all military. But for me, that was a draw as a kid in a military family. I was watching this series and seeing these other characters living in the same sort of like they're on a base and there's like
Space Navy. Oh my god, that's awesome.
Navy. Right, exactly. Like they got a fucking aircraft carrier for an arm, and they punch another ship with a fucking aircraft carrier. Like, I was into it. But a lot of that is it kind of rooted, and I don't mean to speak out of turn. Somebody can correct me, but it's kind of like Japanese culture to do what you're expected, in like the militarism version of it. Like you do your duty. And for me, Minmay singing, like it's her duty, right? She kind of talks about a couple times how if she didn't sing, she didn't know what she would do. Like it was her calling. It was what she had to do. And so in times of crisis, in times of anything going on, the only thing she knew how to do, and it was her duty to do, was to sing.
Well, they kind of addressed that.
Yeah.
In 36.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. He's in
again, battleship comes, starts bombarding. They're in the middle of a love triangle.
Yeah. Kanji's lost his mind. He's like, I'm gonna plow into this.
Yeah. So and they have to say, listen, we gotta go because this is what we know how to do. You know how to sing. But this is what Misa tells Minmay this. You know how to sing, and I'll never be able to do that. But I can protect your culture that you make. That's my gift. And that's his gift too. And then somehow it shakes Hikaru out of his I'm never gonna be with Minmay.
Right.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
It wakes him up.
Yeah, like they didn't say he didn't shake out of it to go be with her. He shaked out of it for the fact that she even recognized this was his duty.
Yeah.
This was his gift.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, how mature is that for a cartoon in the 80s to handle themes like this. Like, you know, love stories notwithstanding, it is a love story, but to handle this breakup in such a way that Minmei's matured as a woman to the point where she gets it and the light bulb goes off and she understands that her mission in life, her calling, it's to do this. It's to be an icon of culture and to an ambassador of humanity, so to speak. And to understand and respect the fact that Hikaru's never gonna be the doting husband waiting at home for you.
No.
That his job is in the cockpit of a Valkyrie, and that's what it's always going to be. I loved that. I loved that about it. It's I don't know. It's just even as a kid, the idea of finding your calling and knowing what your purpose in life was. To me, that's always been sort of a big thing, and to see that portrayed in such a way, handled with I want to say a level of maturity that I'd never seen before in a cartoon.
You know, when I knew that he was going to choose Misa, so let's say there's an equation. Everybody has an equation for love,
Sure.
right? So Hikaru goes to Minmei while she's already in a relationship with somebody else, goes and says, "Hey, just want to let you know I love you," right? Just for Misa to do the same thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, but I loved how Minmei handled that. She tried to keep him with her.
Yeah.
But she didn't fight. She didn't
Right.
fight knowing that she was going to lose. She's like, you know, you guys, I'm not going to win this.
Right.
So I'm going to gracefully bow out. That's respect.
No, seriously. A lot of people who watch this series, they harp on Minmei a lot, saying that she's an annoying character, that she was whiny, that she was a lot of things. But I would like to say that she was at first, but like all characters in this series, she grew into a very mature woman by the end who made the right decision despite, you know, the situation she was in. And that goes for all these characters. All these characters grow in such a way that, seriously, compare it to G.I. Joe. Because again, it's the closest thing to a military cartoon we had based in an American storyline. And Duke in episode 1 is Duke in episode 132. Or he's the same son of the whole show.
You know who had more growth? Cobra.
Yeah. But I mean, arguably, Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes had a heavier storyline than any of the main characters in G.I. Joe. But even that is this long unresolved, because it's all this serialized bullshit. That was what made Macross so different. Is that if you missed an episode, you missed the story.
Right.
If you were missing a chunk of time, you couldn't just jump into episode 27 and know what the fuck was going on. You needed these other episodes before it, or you were missing out. With G.I. Joe, you could pick an episode. Pick one. Watch it. You're not going to miss
It was like a self-contained story, and we didn't. That's all we got at that time.
Right. And not only that, there was no grand lesson you learned at the end of every episode the way you do it in G.I. Joe.
Right.
Or G.I. Joe, or He-Man, or Fat Albert. Like, hey, I'm not supposed to judge this guy's skin color. But no. It's, you're going to die. There was no morality lesson that came back to us.
And man, it's so the war aspect of this story is a lot of heavy in it, a lot of weight to it. And I respect that they did that. I respect that they killed characters with abandon. They are like, we're gonna kill Fokker. We're gonna kill a main character, and it's gonna people up. But it's important because it's part of Hikaru's growth. And then the very next episode, we're gonna kill one of his best friends. We're gonna kill Hayao. Kakizaki gonna die, and he doesn't even get to hang out with his loved ones. Motherfucker just gonna be incinerated. 1-2 punch.
He did not have any luck in any appearance he had.
Who's that one?
Ben Dixon from Robotech. So Hayao Kakizaki. In episode 18, Roy Fokker gets shot down. He dies with Claudia, a woman he loves. In the very next episode, Hayao Kakizaki, Max, and Hikaru are out to have dinner, and Hayao orders a steak, and he's like, I'm gonna eat this steak, because he's a big fun. I love him. So he can't eat his steak because he's got to do. So they take off because they have to scramble. Mother dies in battle. It's Hikaru's first time flying out as Skull One. He is Skull Leader, and he loses a man on his first mission. Not just a man; he loses somebody he's close to on his first mission in charge. It's Hayao just gets incinerated. The barrier system overloads. It expands. It just decimates Quebec, and kills Kakizaki at the same time. 2 episodes in a row, a main character I'd been watching got killed. At that point, as a kid in grade school, I'm like, all bets are off, and anybody can die. I don't know who the hell's going to make this to the end.
Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe.
It was like
They were Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones was Game of Thrones.
exactly. It was Game of Thrones did before anybody else did. Literally, you're on the edge of your seat the rest of the series because you're like, motherfucker, anybody can die. And then the big battle in episode 27 happens. You're like, they're all dead. Like, there's just no way.
Got like the soldier with the little kid.
Yeah,
That one hit me. I was like, wait, what?
What, the mother with the little kid that got burned?
Yeah, the little
right.
kid that was just giving the soldier a flower.
Like the soldier's on his knee, and he's like, "Hey, and how old are you?" Like just
and the soldier's just like, oh well, we're gonna die, but I'm gonna do my best, and like just covered the kid.
Yeah, that's what I was like. They are really cavalier about just burning kids.
I mean, they didn't
But
care.
you know where that
Age
comes
was not-
from.
Age was not taken into consideration. You could be 80 years old. You could be 2 years old. They bombed that planet.
if-
You were done.
Think about it. That's where it
Yeah.
came
You can
from.
live, you have the right to
Yeah.
die.
exactly.
No,
Right?
if you think about it, that's where it came from. Hiroshima.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That level of destruction. The only culture to have ever experienced destruction at that mass, that amount was just Japan. They have an insight into mass death that no other country will ever know, thanks to good old U.S. of A. But
He shot first.
shot first. So that absolutely is a part of that, right? Like that's just, if anything, this anime is a love story. I know we've run long. I don't care. It's Macross. I'll talk about it forever. The story is a love story, but it's also a war story, right? It's also I would argue, an anti-war story, right? It's all about how you don't need big guns to save the day. All you need is love. Cue the Beatles song.
Okay, so all right, you all right. Did they model Max after John Lennon?
Dude, I don't give a who they modeled Max after. That mother could have a mohawk. He's still a bad.
Dude, I felt like it wasn't team said Beatles. I was like, that's who it is. I'm pretty sure they modeled him after John Lennon and Imagine All the People. I mean, they went for it.
He was definitely. What's funny is this is also one of the few anime or animation cartoons when you're a kid that had a very diverse cast. It had the first interracial relationship I'd ever seen in Max and Claudia. That's a huge deal. Roy and Claudia, sorry, thank you. And the first interspecies relationship with Max and Mylene.
No, we didn't have that. We had Captain Kirk. Yeah,
Fair point. But he didn't marry any of them. So
enough.
this series had a lot going on. So Max and Miria and of course Roy and Claudia, the first interracial relationship. I was blown away by that. Not just that it was an interracial relationship, but an interracial relationship with his superior officer. Claudia, I'm pretty sure, outranked him. And he was dating a black woman above his station. Roy had it, man. Roy was I
really love the care they put into Claudia's character.
Absolutely.
She's gorgeous.
She deserves it. And speaking of gorgeous, not to dismiss it, the character designs were done by Haruhiko Mikimoto, who is, when you're in animation, you have, let me back up. When you're a fan of something, right? You have rock stars. You're a fan of Van Halen. You're a fan of Guns N' Roses, whoever it is. Those guys are your rock stars, right? It's like Axl Rose, Eddie Van Halen. These guys are, you see these people, you just melt because they're your rock stars. To anime fans, to animation nerds like me, Haruhiko Mikimoto is my rock star. He's the guy that if I meet, I'm going to melt into a blubbering mess. The guy's a god to me. And his work on this is impeccable because his character designs are so good.
They
in
are
this.
phenomenal.
Max is fantastic. Yeah, you said it. He's got like a Lennon vibe. He's got that shoulder length hair and this like ne'er do well attitude, and Claudia's gorgeous.
But it's important because the reason why that is so important because take something like Naruto, you
Mhm.
know, their definition of what it means to be colored is so off. It feels off about it. Or
Mm.
even something where uh they do sometimes they make the features really, really
Exaggerated.
I don't even want to use exaggerated. It feels almost sinister,
Mm.
if you will. Like when you look at Dragon Ball and Popopo or wherever the big black guy,
Oh my god, dude! Seriously, come on.
right? You couldn't do a little bit better. he, he had to be black. Seriously, he looks like this dude right here. What's his name? Craig. He looks like Craig, but dark, big eyes, and then they put pink lips on him.
Yeah,
He
he's blackface. He's yeah,
he's
it's terrible.
blackface,
He's
and that's the thing.
caricature of yeah.
It's the caricature. But
Yeah.
Claudia, they really made her desirable.
And she was I don't want to say like a proud black woman. She was proud. Her character was very well written, but she wasn't a stereotype in any manner. And that I loved that about her. Like Roadblock in G.I. Joe is a stereotype. I'm sorry. He's a caricature of a southern black man talking and jive and all that shit. Like is racist as shit. But Claudia's not. Claudia's none of those things. Claudia's a strong commanding black officer in the military in 1984. I'd never seen that before.
You had no fear to smack you upside the head verbally, like
Right. And just
They'll put you in your place.
absolutely.
Honestly, for me, it felt like
she did it in
they-
such a way where it just cut you. That's like no emotion, like you're not doing your job. Boom,
Yeah.
you felt this big
Yeah.
at the end of it if she had to lay into you.
She was awesome. I
was-
loved her character.
honestly, it felt like they empowered a whole bridge of Lieutenant Uhura's. You know, shout out to Nichelle Nicholas. She passed. Shout out.
Yep.
So they empowered a whole bridge of Lieutenant Uhura's, and they were like, "Do it, get them."
Yeah. And she's man. And that's a testament to the character development in this series. Right? They made real characters with real character flaws that over the course of 36 episodes, they all grew. And I know in the episode watch list that we came up with, her episode wasn't in it, but there's an episode during the Reconstruction series between 27 and 36 where it's Claudia having tea with Misa and talking to her about how she met Roy. And it's so good. It's just a great character piece of an episode. I don't even know if there's a fight in it, because if there was, I didn't realize it. She just spends the whole time talking to Misa, who's lamenting her relationship with Hikaru. And she's talking to her about how she met Roy and how their relationship worked. And it's so good. It's so intimate. And it's this is why I love this series, because it brings me in to its world. And that's why it's my favorite. Because I'll watch any episode.
33.
What's that?
It's episode 33.
Thank you. Episode 33. And it's so good. If you didn't get a chance to watch it during this watch, it's worth checking out, because it's a bit of flashback to before they get together and how she learned to love Roy despite him being an aloof pilot because of just the nature of their relationship. And it's I recommend this series. I'm going to wrap it up. We've run pretty long here. It's going to be a long one, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. I absolutely recommend this series to anybody who's willing to give it a shot. The animation is inconsistent. That's a product of its time, but it is a story-driven character piece about love, and you can't argue with that. And it's filled with just incredibly well done action sequences with just amazingly. I didn't even get to touch on how well designed the VF1 Valkyrie is. It's a masterpiece in mecha design. And everything about this series from start to end to me is absolutely worth your time. I don't care how old it is. That's my 2 cents. This series is my top of the line for me. And now we talked about before how Gunbuster was like our benchmark for excellence, and Gunbuster still is, without a doubt. But Gunbuster is an OVA. Gunbuster had 6 episodes and a massive budget. Macross managed to do intimate character pieces over the course of a 36 episode children's series that aired on television. So, credit where credit's due. Haruhiko Mikimoto, the character designer from that, ended up working over at Gynex and doing Gunbuster, so the character designs are consistent if that's your jam. This series is it's my line in the sand. This is how I determine if something's worth watching is how does it compare to Macross? And every anime I've ever watched, I compare it to Macross in every subsequent series. I know, before I turn it over to, let's go with Lynette. Lynette, you had never experienced the series before. Give us your final thoughts on it.
I enjoyed it. I really, I don't watch very many mecha. I have like 2 or 3 just sitting in my. Yeah, I know. I'm one of the very few anime people who are like, I don't know. Robots are kind of meh.
Oh, shit, we
But
lost it.
this one actually drew me in. I was like, oh, okay. Robots are like the co-star. Okay, I can do that. I enjoyed the fact that they didn't make it like Voltrons. They didn't make it like the Power Ranger robots. They didn't make it like any other type of or Transformers or any of the typical robots, right? They had a plane that could land like it was a bird and then stand up and scratch its butt. I mean, I didn't know that you could I didn't
So
know that was possible. So that's one of the distinguishing features of Macross, and I will jump back onto the series and watch it from the beginning because I'm very curious now. But I would have to say conversion here. I'm gonna have to watch it because I have to figure it out. But
yeah.
yeah, but like I said, it's the first one where I saw it where I'm like, okay, I like these robots. Usually I'm just like, I don't know about robots.
I will say that one of the things about the series that I do tell people when anybody to listen to me talk at length about it is that Macross would still be a great show even if there were no robots, right? They could just be flying those planes, and the planes they would just not transform, and it would still be just as good of a series because the robots aren't the reason for the series. They are, like you said, it's just the
Co-star.
vehicle. It's
Yeah.
just the co-star. It's something they ride in, which happens to be cool. But that's not the story. Whereas Gundam, the mech is the story, right? Like every Gundam is like every episode is like, oh, they have a new type of Gundam. Oh no, the Xenon. It's like it's all about the next big machine. And in Macross, it's not. The machines are secondary, absolutely, to the overall
People that
story.
control
You know, I gotta agree with that. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Like it was one of the first times that I was full on a mech.
Right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Like, I
I
remember
mean, robots have just been overdone. Sorry, but they
Sure,
have. It's like
absolutely.
everywhere
No.
you look, it's like everything's transforming into something. Everything's
let's
got a
go back
real
to
robot.
let's go back to how we were talking about Gunbuster, right?
Yeah.
We didn't really see Gunbuster in action until
Like the
what,
fourth
it was
episode.
like episode 3,
4.
or episode 4.
Yeah.
Episode 4. We had not seen Gunbuster in action to episode 4,
Right.
so we were still excited to see it. But because they gave us them as the vehicle, we were able to focus on the character.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Huh.
Yeah.
And
Look at
it's
you
something that no other mecha series has done that I can think of. People can comment and let me know, but to me, it's definitely the first where it's the mecha is just an accessory. So Brian, I'll hand it over to you. What's that?
You want to hand it over to me?
I'm handing it over to you, man. Give me your thoughts on this Macross. Having revisited it after 40 years of this existing, how do you feel about it? How's it holding up?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a confession. I have never seen Macross.
I'm not surprised because you probably watch Robotech, right?
No.
You saw Robotech?
No.
What? Brian, I feel like the very fabric of our relationship is based on a lie. Like,
No. Look,
You
I
had to
told
learn
you
to
how I
play
got.
the games with us, and you couldn't. Come on.
I told you how I got there.
This is
I
true.
got
You
there
got there through the RPGs.
through the RPGs, and that's where my love for it came. I remember one of the first conversations we had once we got back in touch with each other, and then you guys were talking about the whole Macross and Robotech
Yeah.
because you guys were going out to someplace for a Macross convention.
Sure. Yeah.
And I asked the same question that Lynette asked, and it was not the same response that you gave her. The response they gave me was, "Yes, you will get cut if you walk into that."
A lot of people that are Macross fans are very passionately hate Robotech. I am not one of those people, but a lot of the fans are, and that's because of all the Harmony Gold hijinks and stuff. And I think what people fail to do as fans is they fail to distance the product from the company that owns the license. Harmony Gold is a company run by horrible people who've done horrible things, all to try and make some money and to hang on desperately to the only piece of intellectual property that's ever made them a penny. And that sucks, and they and f them for it. But Macross Robotech is not them. It is the thing that they were coveting. It's like the Nazis and the Ark, right? The Nazis, but the Ark wasn't an instrument of evil. There's just up evil people, right? It was, so it's a separate thing.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
So that being said, there are so many things I connected with it. I could find myself watching this, even realizing that this is really a period piece.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to get to the fact where we're saying it's 2009 and we don't have Vertex. I'm a little salty about that. But there are so many things. I fell in love with Roy's character. Like, seriously, I sent a message in our group chat today where it says episode 18, you motherfuckers, because this was my first time realizing that Roy died.
It took me a bit too because they didn't cover his face. Usually, if they're dead, they cover the face. So I was like, oh, maybe he's in a coma. That he could be in a coma. I don't know. But then they pan out and it's dark and she's crying. I was like, oh crap, he's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, that can't be. No, wait. I had to rewind. I was like, no, they didn't cover the head. Usually they cover the head. That's like the universal signal.
You should have given us 19. If you had given us 19, we would have been like 8 episodes. We're watching all these.
Yeah. Well, episode 19 is important, yes, but I knew we had a limited amount of time, so the 8 episodes I gave you, I feel like that covered the birth of the story, the wide. You know what I mean? Like Hayao Kakizaki's death sucks, but it's not the most gut-wrenching thing. The most gut-wrenching thing is he just lost his big brother. And now he's lost his friend. And that sucks, but it's the loss of Roy that really just pivots Hikaru into a different way.
So
these episodes, I would have to say, are the Jessica Rabbit song in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, if the only scene that you saw was Jessica Rabbit singing,
yeah,
but you'd be like, I have to watch this movie. This is what you just did. You just gave us Jessica Rabbit's leg and was like,
yeah,
all right, now what are we gonna do?
You're right. I absolutely, I see it. Yes.
So my biggest thing was, all right, so I'm a Star Wars head. Along with being an anime nerd, when we do our Star Wars podcast, I'm signing up for that as well. So, but I'm talking about old school read the book Star Wars.
Sure, absolutely. EU.
Right. So one of my biggest books is when Chewbacca dies.
Oh, that story, man.
Right. It was the first time that
Chewbacca died.
I was ever exposed
you guys just
to.
Destroy my entire love of.
No,
knowledge. I don't even claim to have any knowledge about Star Wars, but the only thing that I loved about it was Chewbacca, and you just told me that he died.
In the
Now I
EU,
don't
he
like it.
dies, and he dies like a bat because he's a bat. Chewbacca's
He's
a bat.
Oh, so he went out. He went out.
Oh,
he
blaze
went out
of
like
glory.
a cat. Go
Blood,
ahead.
like,
Zach.
seriously.
We are gonna divert
he
with this.
doesn't
We'll
go- he
save
doesn't
it.
go on
We
the top as
gotta
Zach did.
save it for the Star Wars podcast here.
But
Yes,
that
he
being
does.
said, Roy gave me that same feeling as Chewbacca died when it was the first time a main character, and it was something about when it happened in Star Wars was like, you know what? Seriously, nobody's safe, and
Yeah.
I love the little bit of fear that it gave me when that happened because that means that I'm emotionally invested, into it. So, I stand by that.
Yep, I agree. It's. I'm glad you finally got to watch some of it. I hope you watch the rest of it because this whole series is just so good.
Ladies and gentlemen, I may not be invited back to the podcast because of that statement.
Vic, we'll turn it over to you now, buddy. We have run over an hour and a half on this so far. What are your final thoughts on Macross 40 years later?
As I sit here holding my DVD collector's edition of Do You Remember Love? Pretty much, even if you've only watched Do You Remember Love and you had no interest in watching the original series, you should watch the original series. I mean, it covers so much that wasn't in the movie, a lot of backstory. Even the very beginning, do you remember the movie starts off in space? So you already missed the first 3 episodes. So for anyone that enjoys the movies, enjoys the follow-ups, any of them, 2 plus 7, Frontier or Delta, you owe it to yourself to at least watch the originals. If you don't want to watch the Robotech branded ones from Harmony Gold, which again, screw Harmony Gold, definitely at least watch the Macross ones. It's worth the time, it's worth the effort, and the fact that, it came out in 83, it's like a lot of these subjects were not anywhere near cartoon ready for us in the US here.
Yeah.
And so the fact that, some cartoons are finally, over like the past 10, 15 years maybe, have started crossing over into some of the types of themes and tropes that Macross carried.
Mature themes. Yeah.
Mature themes. It's like a lot of that wasn't available and wasn't even thought of, and animation that was available to us at the time. It's still one of my most favorite series overall. And Big West will continue to get my money.
So you're not going to tell them about the Macross underwear you wore today?
You promised you wouldn't tell anyone.
If they sold it, I'd buy it. All right, so
Midnight thongs, let's get them.
So yeah, I highly encourage you. Here on this episode's release date is the 40th anniversary of Super Dimension Fortress Macross. October 3rd, this episode will have dropped. If you're listening to it now, you have to find it, which is the real battle as a fan at this point. I guess YouTube might have some of it. But if you can hunt down the older ADV and Animego DVD sets, that's one way you can possibly watch this series. Probably the only way. A fantastic point of note is that the ADV release of Macross had an English dub. And the English dub is dubbed by the very same voice actress who did it in Japanese. So Marie Jima voiced Lin Min Mei in both English and in Japanese. So probably one of the few occasions in anime history where that's ever occurred. If you can find it, it's worth watching. If anybody else has anything to add, now's the time. But I think that it's gonna wrap for Macross. All right, folks. So until next time, keep calm and punch them in the face with a battleship.
Yes.
You've just been privy to the mindless midlife musings of the anime nerd, presented by Geek Grotto. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Geek Grotto. For show notes and corrections, or for general geeky fun, you can visit our website at geek-grotto.com. If you would like to sponsor the show, you can do so on the podcast's Red Circle host site, redcircle.com/shows/MMMAN. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app, please like, follow, and subscribe.